waiting for George Pickens to sign his franchise tag. We got the latest on what the hesitation might be. That's coming your way in just minutes. Ty Simpson and Sean McVay had a secret meeting before the draft. We'll tell you what this latest wrinkle in the Rams' plan to draft Matthew Stafford is. Plus, the Giants bulked up their offensive and defensive lines in the draft, but Malik Neighbors had some questions. Wait until you hear how John Harbaugh reacted and what it means for the Giants going forward. Glad to have you here. We've got Kimberly Martin and J-Mac here in studio. Peter Schrager is with us as well. We've got live reports throughout the show, so let's get to it. We're going to begin with the developing story on Aaron Rodgers. A lot to get to there. Adam Schefter reporting that the Steelers placed the rare UFA tender on Aaron Rodgers, meaning that he can accept a 10% raise off last year's salary, which would pay him about $15 million this season. As another condition of the tender, Rodgers would only be able to sign with the Steelers once training camp begins. Let's explain this unsigned free agent tender a little bit more. Teams can assign it after the draft is over. Once assigned, players can still sign with other teams. If Rodgers does sign elsewhere, it could help the Steelers land a compensatory pick in next year's draft. It's going to be a good draft. If he doesn't sign with a different team by training camp, he can only sign with Pittsburgh, as we told you. So any team that wanted to acquire Rodgers after camp begins would have to make a trade for his rights. So it's a lot of gobbledygook, but basically he's going to be a Steeler, I think. Kimberly, from the Steelers' perspective, why did they decide to do this?
All right, stop me if you've heard this, but the Steelers believe that Aaron Rodgers will play for them this season. When he will get there, no one knows. But this, like you said, the two words that were very important in what Laura just said, compensatory picks. This is, look at it as an administrative maneuver. In the off chance that Rodgers does sign somewhere else, which the Steelers don't think he will, but just in case, this is almost an insurance policy to make sure that they get a compensatory pick. Keep in mind, guys, this is the same team that thought it'd be in position to draft a wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon, until they weren't able to. So now they're just covering all their bases.
Yeah, to echo Kimberly's point, my understanding is they tender him at 110% of what he got last year. So it'd be about $15 million. And any team, though, can still agree to a contract with him, but it then would count against the compensatory pick formula. So he can sign the tender at any time or negotiate a different deal. July 22nd, though, is the big one. That's the start of training camp. That's when it matters for the Steelers. It essentially tags Rodgers to the Steelers for 2026. He can either play for Pittsburgh at about $15 million, or he could try to find a new team to outbid him, but it has to be before July 22nd. Or he could just retire and call it like it is. It's very rare. I believe Marcus Golden with the Giants had one of these. I think LeGarrette Blount with the Patriots in 2017. And it's really, really rare we see it. So that's why everyone was kind of caught off guard. And why I started this with was my understanding is because this is not like a usual move. But again, to Kimberly's point, this is insurance on the rare chance he actually says, you know what? I actually want to sign with the Vikings this year. Well, at least we get something out of that.
The crazy thing of all of this is, what the heck is Aaron Rodgers thinking? I think that's the biggest part, because we see it from the Pittsburgh Steelers perspective, but I look at this for Aaron Rodgers. Who's to know that right now he hasn't signed back with Pittsburgh, because maybe he was looking in training camp to get to a better team, a contender potentially if a starting quarterback went down, and maybe he wanted to go that route. Well, that's completely over and done with now with what this tag brings to the table. I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're at a point now where they're hoping that Rodgers is going to come back, and this guarantees it once training camp starts. I can't imagine there's a team out there in that time in between that's looking to sign Aaron Rodgers. But at the end of the day, if you're the Steelers, you want to know what he's thinking and what's stopping him right now from signing back with this ball club to be able to get out there with Michael Pittman Jr., who's a new wide receiver, and be able to go to work.
I have no idea, but I think what's stopping him is his own timeline. Like, he's just like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Now, the Steelers do have Will Howard in the quarterback room. They drafted Drew Aller. If they don't have Rodgers, if we're in that world, paint a picture for what you think about Aller.
I really like Aller. You love the physical tools that he brings to the table. And while he was at Penn State, I remember calling this game. And his sophomore year, people were talking about this guy as he had the potential to be the first quarterback off the board when he entered into the NFL draft. Now, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the fact that Aaron Rodgers isn't showing up right now, well, it gives you an entire offseason potentially to work with a guy like Drew Aller, with a guy like Will Howard, and see what those guys bring to the table. And it gives Mike McCarthy a chance to evaluate them. Those are reps that they could be getting with the starters, DK Metcalf out there, Michael Pittman Jr. in the company, to be able to say, hey, what can these guys bring to the table? How far along is Will Howard from a year ago? And then where can we get Drew Aller to see what he could potentially look like as a starter?
We're waiting on Aaron Rodgers' timeline. What else is new?
Yeah, sounds familiar. Aller already known to limit mistakes. He holds the 4th lowest career interception rate over the last 30 FBS seasons. You have to go back a couple years to see his best work, like J-Mac saying, but it was there. Let's go to Dallas. We continue to wait for George Pickens to sign his franchise tag. The Cowboys expected him to sign it as of last Thursday, but our Todd Archer reported yesterday it remains unsigned. Stephen Jones said before the draft the team does not plan to do a long-term deal with the wide receiver. And the Cowboys weren't exactly focused on pass catchers in this year's draft. 5 of their first 6 picks were on defense, which they needed a lot of help on, right? The only wide receiver they drafted was in the 7th round. Pickens is coming off a career-best season, including catches, yards, and touchdowns. When you look at all that, J-Mac, from Pickens' perspective, does it make sense to sign the tag now?
It's not a lot of fun when you're at home if you're George Pickens and you hear the fact that, hey, we're not planning on signing you to a long-term deal. We want you to just sign your franchise tag and come on and play. If I'm George Pickens, I'm having my agent explore every opportunity to get a trade going, because if I'm Pickens, I want to go somewhere this offseason where I can get paid. Is there a team that's willing to give something up to get him there and then give him the contract that he earned with his play on the field a year ago? I know a lot of people are going to say to you, if I'm George Pickens, just sign the tag, go to work, and just replicate the year you had last year. That's not so easy. You think about it, the draft just passed, and a year ago we had all of these quarterbacks coming out for the draft that didn't happen. Now we're all saying, look to 2027 for that draft. You don't know what a year of football is going to bring. George Pickens has to stay healthy. Dak Prescott has to stay healthy. It's also the second year in the system that every defensive coordinator studied all offseason. So if I'm Pickens, I'm trying to get out to get the contract right now, and then my last resort is to sign that tag and go play.
It's a real paradox here because we came out of draft weekend and you can look at it in 2 different buckets. Like, the Cowboys killed the draft. They did awesome, but they did so on the defensive side of the ball because last year that was the area of need. They hired Christian Parker, who is a firebrand, 34-year-old, upbeat, high energy, first-time defensive coordinator from the Eagles. They hire him and they go, defense, defense, and they pick another player, then defense, defense. 4 of their top 5 picks are defense. And speaking of sources in Dallas, like, they're doing flips. They love what they did because they got better on the defensive side of the ball. And the thought process is, we don't need to do much on offense because we were so good. But if George Pickens is not on the field, your offense is not what it was a year ago. So as I'm doing flips on First Take yesterday, giving them an A+ for their draft grades, I also have to say, well, let's see, because if they have a gaping hole at the number 2 wide receiver next year because Pickens isn't on the field, maybe they botched this draft by not addressing that position.
Guys, picture it. Combine. I'm standing on the stage talking to Brian Schottenheimer, and I say, has your new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, told you have to go defense, defense, defense in the draft? And he goes, yeah, he's trying to. Because we all knew defense was the issue. And you come out of draft weekend, like Peter said, and you're like, damn, the Cowboys, they did it. They improved the defense, finally. And now we have the George Pickens uncertainty, that cloud of uncertainty hanging above us, and we're wondering, the offense was the thing that you could count on. That was the unit that was going to take them to the playoffs. It was the defense that had to step up. Now you feel good about the defense. This George Pickens situation, same agent as Michael Parsons, obviously. Jerry, has talked about David Mulugheta off and on. And now you wonder, how long is this going to drag on? If you're George Pickens, why wouldn't you want your agent to shop you? If you're a Cowboys fan, you want the team to figure this out any way possible, because losing George Pickens, now you're looking at a team where you're not thinking, oh, they can go deep in the playoffs. You're like, now they're a team that can't get it right.
Earlier this week on the show, to the point that you're making about the defense being so drastically improved, Dan Orlovsky's saying, like, this could be a top 10 defense with what they've done. Is there a world where, and I'm not minimizing the importance of George Pickens, I realize he was the reason a lot of times why their offense was as good as it was, but is there a world where, like, the defense is enough better where you say the offense can meet them halfway somewhere and they are improved enough to where this team can function well without Pickens?
Yeah, I do think that is the case. I think to a certain extent, if you're Dallas and you're looking at what you did defensively with what you were able to do last year offensively, you're saying, hey, we can be Super Bowl contenders. And I think that's going to be the difference where if you don't have a George Pickens, although the defense is going to be much improved with what they brought in, are we looking at a team that's going to be Super Bowl contenders or just playoff contenders? I think that's the big difference of what George Pickens brings to the table and how he changes things for them on the offensive side of the ball. But I agree with you guys. What they did on the defensive side of the ball has been awesome.
The rest of the division, a couple teams got better, like the Giants.
Laura,
that's true.
I would agree.
Also,
if I could just add, you know,
go ahead.
he was relatively a saint last year and had some things, but like for the most part was on his best behavior, thinking there was a carrot at the end. I don't know about year 2 if you're disgruntled about your contract.
Well, there may just be a carrot elsewhere. I mean, listen, George Pickens, I'm not advocating for you to, like, not get paid. I'm saying go get paid somewhere else. It'd be really fun to see that trade happen. I can think of
Jerry's
going
to text you in 5 minutes. Like, don't tell
Jerry
him
had
that.
my number, I would be shocked. All right, we're just getting started on NFL Live. The Rams were really surprising a lot of people by taking Ty Simpson in the first round. But what's the move already in motion behind closed doors? Rams GM Les Snead joined the Pat McAfee show. He'll tell us more on that. That's coming your way. Plus, are the Bears poised to build off of last season's success? Someone here says Ben Johnson's rookie head coach results could have been deceiving. Find out if there's more next.